dressed as an abandoned woman. Hungry, so hungry. In the stillness of the night, a few faint voices came from the dilapidated courtyard. In the dark and damp room, there was no candlelight, only a strong, musty smell of the tide. On the bed, a woman with a yellow complexion and slightly disheveled hair lay on the bed. Her mouth opened from time to time, and she kept chewing the word hungry. Mu Shuyin just felt so hungry now, as if she hadn't eaten for 10 days. Her chest was pressed against her back after eating. She slowly opened her eyes, and then she realized that there was darkness in front of her, and she couldn't see her fingers. Mu Shuyin put her hands on the bed and was about to sit up. As soon as she put her hands on the bed, she heard a thump and then the sound of a woman in pain. Ouch! At this time, Mu Shuyin realized that something was not right about this time. She clearly remembered that she was tired from playing games and fell asleep on the table. Why was she sleeping on the same bed now? The strangest thing was that she had no strength and her stomach kept growling. At this moment, Mu Shuyin was sure that she was hungry, and extremely hungry. She turned her head. Through the moonlight outside the window, Mu Shuyin saw a shocking scene. She found that the furnishings of the house in front of her were actually different from the place where she lived. The things in front of her were very old. The wooden tables, wooden windows, and the curtains she had just put on not long ago had now turned into tattered paper window paper. A bad premonition suddenly broke into her mind. Mu Shuyin quickly reached out and touched her cheeks with both hands. She was so thin that she felt her heart skip a beat. She continued to touch up and touched her hair. Her hair, which was short to shoulder length, had now become long hair. I traveled through time. Mu Shuyin lay on the bed in shock and muttered to herself. She didn't know how much time had passed, but Mu Shuyin only knew that she could no longer lie on the bed, because if she kept lying like this, she would become the first person in history to starve to death just after time travel. She gritted her teeth and got up from the squeaky bed, gritted her teeth, and walked out of the room with bare feet. Mu Shuyin walked to the door and stood there to explore the surrounding situation. She was living in a desolate house. The house had several rooms, but each room was as dilapidated as a haunted house. As soon as she left the house, there was a small yard outside. The yard was full of weeds, and the weeds on the ground were almost covering a person's knees. Mu Shuyin looked up at the sky, pointed at God, and asked, "God, where are you sending me? Other time-traveling girls are popular and drink spicy food. As for me, do you have the nerve to throw me into such a place where no one can shit?" After blaming God, the sky was still so dark and there was no movement. Mu Shuyin took back her resentment and picked up a wooden stick from the yard to support her shaky body and found her way into the kitchen. When she got to the kitchen and searched the dilapidated kitchen, Mu Shuyin was so angry that she really wanted to smash the stick in her hand on the ground. Unfortunately, she didn't have the strength, and she still needed it to support her. After she carefully searched the kitchen, she only found a few sweet potatoes, a few kilograms of flour, and 3 eggs. Then there was nothing, not even a grain of diesel salt. Damn it, what the hell did I wear? Mu Shuyin glared at the eaters and cursed. As soon as she finished cursing, an embarrassing sound came. That is, her huge stomach began to growl again. Half an hour later, thick white smoke suddenly appeared over the dilapidated yard. In the kitchen, Mu Shuyin was roasting the sweet potatoes she had just found while coughing. Dirty woman. Chai Mu Shuyin broke down a tree that had been dead for unknown years in the yard and burned it as firewood, because there was no firewood here. After a while, the entire desolate yard was suddenly enveloped in thick smoke. Jingchen Qiushao. At the same time, in the north direction away from the courtyard, a group of people were walking in the night. Walking in the middle of the crowd was a tall man. Every time he took a step, his body would tilt. The moment he tilted, there was a thumping sound on the ground. It turned out that this man had difficulty walking and was walking on crutches. The servants walking on both sides of him walked with their heads lowered in fear. In the dark night, only the footsteps of these people could be heard. Suddenly, a certain man who was walking stopped. The tip of his nose moved, and a cold breath was exuded from his body. The people standing around him lowered their heads desperately, and at the same time prayed to God in their hearts that they would be alive tonight to see the sun tomorrow. "What does this smell like?" Xiao Tianfeng had a tense black face, glanced sideways at the entourage beside him, and asked displeasedly, "Back to your lord, this seems to be the smell of smoke coming from Qingfeng Yuan." Tianma lowered his head, stepped forward cautiously, and stood in front of Xiao Tianfeng to answer. Xiao Tianfeng frowned and continued to ask with a dark face, "Where is Qingfeng Yuan? Who lives there?" Gastrodia lowered her head and bit her tongue, wailing in her heart, "My prince, you can't be so forgetful, right? Your princess lives in Qingfengyuan. The poor princess only married the prince for a month and was sent to the cold courtyard of Qingfengyuan because she said something taboo to the prince. Why don't you reply? I want to ask you, who lives in Qingfeng Yuan?" Xiao Tianfeng didn't wait for Gastrodia's answer, so his tone became more serious, and he asked. Tianma gritted his teeth, carefully looked up at Master Xiao Tian, and replied respectfully, "Master Qingfengyuan, then. The princess lives there." Princess. When Xiao Tianfeng heard this, he was stunned at first, then thought about it, and then remembered that he got married 3 months ago, and the woman was still from the prime minister's house. Now, when he mentioned his princess, his husband couldn't even remember what the princess looked like. "I understand. You guys stay here, and I'll go and take a look." I don't know what happened, but tonight he suddenly wanted to go to the Qingfeng courtyard to see the princess who was sent to the cold courtyard by him. When Tianma heard Xiao Tianfeng's words, he was so frightened that his chin almost dropped. He rubbed his eyes, looked at his father's figure, and whispered to himself, "It's strange. Why is my father so strange tonight? He actually thought of visiting the princess. It's been 2 months, hasn't it? I thought he had forgotten the princess a long time ago." Xiao Tianfeng followed the smell of smoke and walked to the entrance of Qingfeng courtyard. The door was closed crookedly by 2 old and broken wooden doors. As soon as he walked to the door of the courtyard, he heard bursts of coughing coming from inside. Before he realized what was happening, he saw a sloppy woman with a face like a little tabby cat burst out of the yard. Xiao Tianfeng, who had been used to seeing beauty since childhood, suddenly saw such a dirty woman running over. He opened his eyes wide, took a few steps back, and shouted, "Stop! Don't run over again." Vulgar woman. Mu Shuiyun didn't expect that a man would appear in what she thought was a desolate yard. Half of her face was stained with black-gray, and she stared at the man in front of her with wide eyes. At this time, what appeared in front of her was a man who looked to be in his 20s, with white face and red lips, a demon-like handsome face with some coldness, sharp eyes like an eagle, and a sharp nose. The man in front of her made Mu Shuiyun, who had loved looking at handsome men since she was a child, stare blankly. Jing Chen Qi Shao. Xiao Tianfeng hated the way the woman in front of him looked at him. He always felt that the way she looked at him seemed to carry a message of hunger. This was an unforgivable humiliation for him, the majestic king of Zhou. "Woman, have you seen enough? I order you to quickly take away your despicable gaze, otherwise I will dig out your eyeballs." Xiao Tianfeng gritted his teeth and pointed at Mu Shuiyun, who was looking at him without shame, and shouted loudly. Mu Shuiyun never expected that this good-looking man would turn out to be a ferocious man. Suddenly, Mu Shuiyun greatly discounted the man's favor in her heart. She replied to him with a long face, "Why are you so fierce? Isn't it just for others to look like you? Let me see how you are doing. You won't lose a piece of meat. Why are you so stingy? Really?" Xiao Tianfeng was so angry at Mu Shuiyun's words that his face turned black. He was so angry that his handsome face turned from black to red, and he said the word "you" several times. Do you know who this king is?" Mu Shuiyun was attracted by his beauty just now and didn't notice that he called himself the king. Now she was so angry at the vicious man in front of her that she subconsciously accused him. "Who are you to do this shit to me? Why do I need to know?" "You are a vulgar woman. I didn't expect that the second lady of the prime minister would actually be a dirty woman. I've been with the princess for 3 months, and I was almost deceived by you, princess. Xiao Tianfeng pursed his lips slightly and looked at Mu Shuiyun with an evil smile on his lips. This time, Mu Shuiyun finally heard what he called himself in his words. She opened her mouth wide, pointed at him with her finger, and said in surprise, you just called yourself the king. Are you the prince? Xiao Tianfeng saw her surprised look and thought she was playing tricks on him, so Xiao Tianfeng looked at Mu Shuiyun with a look of contempt. He curled the corners of his mouth and looked at her and said, Princess, your scene tonight is a bit fake. You have been with me for 3 months, and my princess doesn't even know me. Ha! After saying this, Xiao Tianfeng laughed to the sky. Mu Shuiyun was really stunned now. She felt that the excitement of traveling from modern times was too great. She didn't expect that the identity of the body she wore was actually that of a princess. She opened her mouth towards Xiao Tianfeng, pointed at herself with her finger, and asked him, You said, I am your princess? How is this possible? A flash of suspicion flashed in the corner of Xiao Tianfeng's eyes. He squinted at her and continued, How is it impossible? Aren't you just marrying me for your sister-in-law? Why, your prime minister's government threw this shame to me, Mu Shuiyun. You actually forgot so quickly? As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Tianfeng strode in front of Mu Shuiyun. Before she could react, he stretched out a hand and squeezed her chin tightly, forcing her to look at the suspicious gaze he shot at her. What do you want? What do you want to do? Please go away. Let me go quickly. Mu Shuiyun pinched her chin so hard that she couldn't even speak clearly. She stared at the stinky man who dared to pinch her chin with her eyes wide open and said to him fiercely, First confrontation. Xiao Tianfeng threw Mu Shuiyun away with a look of disgust. Mu Shuiyun, who was holding her chin tightly, did not expect that he would suddenly make this move, causing her to stumble and almost fall. Jing Chen Qi Shao. She stabilized her shaky steps and looked at this stinky man with wide eyes. Why are you pushing me? You think you are great because you are a prince, don't you? Look at you. Mu Shuiyun really doesn't take you as a prince seriously. What's the matter? After saying that, Mu Shuiyun stretched her neck to meet the murderous look in Xiao Tianfeng's eyes. Anyway, she was unlucky enough to be here, and now she has to be inexplicably insulted by this crazy man. She had already thought about what would happen if she pissed him off. The worst possible outcome would be to be dragged out by this stinky man and beaten to death with sticks. This was fine, as it suited her. Xiao Tianfeng's pupils dilated. He gritted his teeth and raised his left hand. After a while, his left hand suddenly stopped in midair. He stared at the woman who dared to stare back at him. Xiao Tianfeng felt that this woman was a bit strange. Is this the same Miss Xianghua who was afraid of marrying him 3 months ago? Who are you? You're not Mu Shuiyun. You can't be her. After a long time, Xiao Tianfeng put down his hand raised in the air, frowned, and stared at Mu Shuiyun. Mo Shuiyun was holding her breath, her heart pounding, waiting for his left hand raised in midair to attack her neck. After waiting for a long time, she saw the palm that was about to reach towards her neck move away. Just when she was about to breathe a sigh of relief, Xiao Tianfeng's next words almost made her choke on her own saliva. While coughing, she lowered her head guiltily and replied, I don't know what you're talking about. I am Mu Shuiyun. After saying that, Mu Shuiyun stretched out a hand and touched her face randomly. She did not expect that the other side of her face that was not blackened would also turn into a black face. When Xiao Tianfeng saw it, the corner of his mouth curved. Unknowingly, his hand suddenly stretched out towards her dusty face. Just when he was about to touch her tender face, as fragile as porcelain, Xiao Tianfeng suddenly came back to his senses and quickly retracted his outstretched hand, and an expression of disbelief flashed across his face. What happened to him tonight? He behaved abnormally in front of this woman again and again. Just now, he even wanted to reach out and help this woman wipe her face. Thinking of this absurdity, Xiao Tianfeng immediately let out a chill all over his body. I don't care whether you go to Mu Shui or not. After all, this is Prince Jing's mansion. Although you are locked up here by me now, you still represent the title of princess. Pay attention to your image. After saying that, Xiao Tianfeng flicked his sleeves and left the door of Ling Yuan angrily. Mu Xueyin was confused by this smelly man who suddenly came and left suddenly. It wasn't until he was far away that she pointed in the direction where he disappeared and cursed, "Bah, bah, bah, bah. Who cares about you honoring the title of princess? I've seen so many, from I have never seen a princess living a life that is worse than a pig. I am so unlucky that I ended up like this Mu Xueyin. Woo-woo. I want to go home. I want to go home." At the end of his scolding, Mu Xueyin suddenly squatted on the ground, hugged her knees, and cried in a choked voice. Not far away, Xiao Tianfeng actually didn't go very far. He heard all Mu Xueyin's scolding words just now, and now he heard her intermittent crying. Xiao Tianfeng stood silently in the night and looked at the petite figure at the door of Ling Yuan. "Your Majesty, the fog is a bit thick tonight. Let's get in the room quickly." At this time, Gastrodia walked quietly behind Xiao Tianfeng and whispered to wake him up. "Roasted sweet potatoes." Xiao Tianfeng looked back at Mu Xueyin, who was squatting on the ground crying in the distance. He turned his head and commanded Tianma, his personal servant, expressionlessly, "Help me find out what her life was like in this cold hospital for the past 2 months. Check it out for me carefully." After leaving these words, Xiao Tianfeng glanced at the thin figure from the corner of his eyes, then flicked his sleeves and turned around to leave. Tianma stayed where he was, looking back and forth at the back of the prince who was walking away and the petite figure in the distance. He touched the back of his head and said to himself, "It's strange. What happened to me tonight? Why did you ask me to check this person in Ling Yuan?" Here, after venting her inner sadness, Mu Xueyin looked up at the dark night and saw that the surroundings were quiet. Not even a single person could be seen, except for those annoying crickets in the grass that kept chirping. She stretched out the back of her hand to wipe her red eyes. Her little face, which was originally like a black cat, suddenly became even more unearthly. In the darkness, if it weren't for the sound of people's breathing, it would be impossible to find her face. At this time, there were 2 growls in her stomach. At this moment, Mu Xueyin remembered that she had just run out to avoid the smoke inside, and she was very angry because she met a smelly man here. If her stomach hadn't growled a few times, she would have really forgotten remembering that she hadn't eaten anything since traveling here. Mu Xueyin shouted, my sweet potato." After saying this, Mu Xueyin ran back to the yard with shaky steps to check out the sweet potatoes she had roasted in the haystack. Mu Xueyin, who hurried back to the yard, pulled out 3 sweet potatoes roasted black from the ashes. Due to hunger, as soon as Mu Xueyin smelled the sweet potato fragrance, the saliva in her throat kept going into her stomach. Without thinking, she couldn't wait to grab it with her hands. At this time, she completely forgot that she had just pulled these 3 sweet potatoes out of the still red fire, and they were still very hot. Error 500, server error. 1500, that's an error. There was an error. Please try again later. That's all we know. After a while, her 5 fingers finally felt. Mu Xueyin then took the 3 sweet potatoes on the ground again. This time, she was no longer as greedy as before. She carefully picked up a sweet potato and then peeled away the roasted black skin on the surface of the sweet potato. The purple flesh was exposed inside, steaming, and the aroma was alluring. Mu Xueyin took a big bite, which made her mouth hiss because of the heat, but even so, she could not bear to spit out the hot sweet potato meat. After half a stick of incense, all 3 sweet potatoes were taken care of by Mu Xueyin. A lot of black sweet potato skins were thrown on the ground. Mu Xueyin was so full that she burped. She was about to reach out to pat her chest, but as soon as she waved, she found that the back of her palms was covered with black ash. At this time, as if she thought of something, she immediately wiped her face with the only clean corner of her clothes. When she took it off, she found that it was stained with a layer of black. I didn't expect that I, Mu Xueyin, would end up like this after traveling the day before. I'm really embarrassed. I just heard that stinky man say that my body is his princess. Princess? What the hell? I've never seen a princess be like me. It's really bad luck in 8 lifetimes. Thinking of this, Mu Shuiyin lost her temper, picked up the corner of her clothes, and wiped her face hard on both sides. Egg pancake. After eating 3 roasted sweet potatoes, her stomach was a little full. Mu Shuiyun found that she felt sleepy. Originally, she wanted to get some hot water and take a bath, but after thinking about it, she forgot about it and would take a bath tomorrow. Jingchen Qishao. Following the afterglow of the moonlight in the sky, Mu Shuiyun lay back on the hard bed where she had just been lying, yawned, closed her eyes, and soon fell into Zhougong's dream. The next morning, Mu Shuiyin woke up naturally. As soon as she opened her eyes, a ray of setting sun shot on her face through the broken window. Well, I slept really comfortably. I haven't had a good sleep in a long time. I don't know if it was the effect of eating 3 sweet potatoes last night. When she came together this morning, she found that her body was stronger, unlike when she had just walked in and felt weak. Rubbing her eyes, Mu Shuiyin put on her shoes and left the room. This was the first time she saw the yard during the day. What she saw now was the same as what she saw last night, but this time she saw it more clearly. As for how tall the weeds in the yard were, she could see clearly this time. After looking at the cold courtyard, Mu Shuiyin walked into the kitchen again and looked for food. She found something edible last night, and now only a few kilograms of white flour and 3 eggs were left. The sweet potatoes had been wiped out by her last night. After searching around the kitchen, Mu Shuiyin finally found a pot and several small bowls. However, this pot was also a broken pot because one of the hooks on the pot was missing and there was a big crack on the edge of the pot. Mu Shuiyin looked at it and sighed, saying to herself, "Forget it. It's better to have it than not. At least, you can use it when baking egg pancakes later." Seeing that she was hungry again, Mu Shuiyin rolled up the sleeves on her arms without much hesitation and began to bring in a small bucket of water from the well in the yard, washed the broken pot, and then went to the yard to pull the remaining dry firewood from last night. After getting everything done, Mu Shuiyin grabbed a handful of flour and put it into a small bowl. Then she beat an egg into the flour, poured a little cold water in, and mixed the flour and eggs into a soft dough. At this time, Mu Shuiyin lowered her head and stuffed the firewood into the stove, opened the fire switch, and blew on it. After a while, the firewood in the stove ignited, and a burst of thick smoke suddenly floated over the cold courtyard where there had been no fireworks for 3 days. In the sunny cold courtyard, Mu Shuiyin held a bowl of well water in one hand and a piece of cake in the other hand and stuffed it into her mouth. She chewed a few times and then moved her mouth to the well water held in the other hand and took a sip. She swallowed the well water and the tasteless, oilless, and unpalatable egg cake into her stomach. After finally finishing the 2 pieces of cake in her hands, Mu Shuiyin felt that her stomach was much fuller again, and her eyes were not as blurry as before. At this time, a cry of self-blame came from outside Leng Yuan. "Second miss, why are you up?" Mu Shuiyin heard the voice coming from behind, turned around and glanced, and found 2 people standing outside the door of Leng Yuan. No, it should be said that they were one old and one young, but they were both women. Before Mu Shuiyin could figure out what was going on, the old woman ran in with tears on her face, snatched the well water from Mu Shuiyin's hand, and glanced at the half-mouthed egg pancake left in Mu Shuiyin's bowl. The old woman hugged Mu Shuiyin and started sobbing. "Second miss, how can you eat this kind of thing? It's all Ziyue's fault. If Ziyue didn't come back in time, because she had a fever last night, second miss, you wouldn't have eaten this thing." At this time, the little girl who was following the old woman knelt down in front of Mu Shuiyin with a look of self-blame on her face and said while crying, "Who are you?" Mu Shuiyin looked blankly at the 2 women who suddenly appeared in front of her. After a while, she pointed at the 2 of them, frowned, and asked, Who are you 2? The 2 women who ran and had the same reaction when they heard Mu Shuiyin's words. They were stunned. For a long time, the younger girl kept staring at Mu Shuiyin. Then she pulled the older woman to the side with a mysterious look on her face and muttered in a low voice, "Mother Wu, what do you think is wrong with the young lady? Why did she ask us who we are?" Mother Wu looked back at Mu Shuiyun, shook her head, looked pale, and replied, "Well, I don't know what's wrong with the lady. She wouldn't ask us this question before. Besides, we just didn't come back last night. How come the lady has forgotten both you and me in just one night? What's going on?" Mu Shuiyun watched them talk for a while, then called them. "Hey, you can tell me, who are you? And what is your relationship with me?" "Miss, do you really not remember me and Mother Wu? I am Ziyue. I have been following you since I was a child, and there is Mother Wu. She is your wet nurse, miss. How come you have forgotten us?" Ziyue walked to Mu Shuiyun with a crying face, took her arm, and said excitedly and sadly, "Jing Chen Qi Shao." Mu Shuiyun looked at the two of them and glanced around their faces. She had already tried her best to think about it in her mind, but damn it, the previous owner of this body didn't leave any memory to her. Looking at the two women staring at her pitifully, Mu Shuiyun shook her head and said, "I'm sorry. I really don't remember who you are. I didn't know why I hit my head against a pillar last night, and I couldn't remember anything in my mind after I woke up." You. Mu Shuiyun hurriedly moved her head out of the way, looked at Mother Wu's concerned eyes, and lied to Mother Wu without her conscience. "Mother Wu, I'm fine, and my head doesn't hurt anymore. You don't have to look at it." What a joke. If she really showed her head to Mother Wu, it would be bad if Mother Wu found out that she was lying when she said she hit her head. So this time, Mu Shuiyun decided that she could not let Mother Wu look at her head under any circumstances. When Mother Wu saw that Shuiyun refused to let her examine the injury on her head, her tears flowed even more fiercely. She thought that the young lady would not let her examine the wound because she was afraid that she would be sad. She thought that such a good young lady had such a hard life. She lost her mother when she was a child. When she grew up, she could get married, but she was hurt like this by her eldest sister. Seeing Wu's mother, who was crying nonstop, Mu Shuiyun was really frightened. She raised her hand. Her mouth suddenly became stupid again, and she opened her mouth. She couldn't say the last comforting words. Finally, Mu Shuiyun sighed and could only let Wu's mother cry. "There are balls in my belly." Fortunately, Mother Wu stopped crying soon after. She looked at Mu Shuiyun and said, "Miss, don't worry, Mother Wu. Even if I risk my life, I will let you give birth to the little prince safely." Mother Wu held Mu Shuiyun's hand and kept talking, not noticing how ugly Mu Shuiyun's face was at this time. After a long time, Mu Shuiyun opened her mouth wide, pointed at herself with a finger, and stammered to ask Mother Wu, "Mother Wu, what did you just say? What little prince? Please explain clearly. What do you mean by this?" Mother Wu and Ziyue looked at each other when they saw how excited Mu Shuiyun was. Ziyue bit her lips and carefully said to Mu Shuiyun, "Second miss, you won't forget such a big thing that you are pregnant with the little prince." Mu Shuiyun heard Ziyue's voice and looked from Wu's mother to Ziyue. When she heard Ziyue say that she was carrying a ball in her belly, Mu Shuiyun simply felt that this was a thunderbolt from the blue. She originally thought that after she had rested for the past few days, she would secretly escape from the palace and plan to explore the north and south of this dynasty alone, taste delicious food from all over the country, and even travel to various places to see if she could find a man she loved and live with him here for the rest of her life. But now, this bolt from the blue completely disrupted Mu Shuiyun's plan. She had thought about it a lot, but she never expected that there was such a small ball hidden in her stomach. "Mother Wu, what's wrong with the young lady? She looks sad. What should we do now?" Ziyue has been watching the changes in Mu Shuiyun's face since she finished speaking. She found that her young lady looked desperate at the beginning, then showed a happy expression, and not long after, she showed a bitter look, which made her stunned. She never knew that her young lady had such rich expressions. Mother Wu sighed, glanced at Mu Shuiyun, who looked listless, and said in a choked voice, "Poor young lady. I don't know what happened to her last night. How could she have forgotten all the previous things? How can this be a good thing?" "Actually, Mother Wu, there is nothing wrong with the fact that the young lady has forgotten what happened before. Think about it. The young lady has been left here by the prince for the past 2 months and has been ignored. The young lady has been depressed every day. But after hearing that there was a little prince in her belly, her mood became a lot more optimistic. I feel that the young lady has forgotten what happened before. This is God helping our young lady. God does not want our young lady to be so tired alive. Chayu pouted and looked at Mu Shuiyun with a sad face. After listening to Ziyu's words, Wu's mother thought about it and suddenly felt that Ziyu's words seemed quite right. Now the prince hated the young lady to death and even ignored the little prince in his belly. If the young lady forgot all the things before, maybe she could live happily in the future. Thinking of this, Mother Wu clenched her fists, walked to Mu Shuiyun, stretched out her hand to hold Mu Shuiyun's right hand. Her eyes were red, and her voice was amiable. Miss, just forget about the past. Forget it if we can't remember it. Don't stand here. Let's go to the house to talk. Mu Shuiyun has not yet recovered from the shock of having a bead on her body. She allowed Wu's mother and Ziyue to help her from outside the yard to the room. Inquire. After staying in the room for a while, Mu Shuiyun also learned from Wu's mother and Ziyue that the ball in her belly was only more than 3 months old. In addition, she was sent to this cold hospital as soon as she became pregnant, and she was treated badly. She didn't wear warm clothes and didn't eat enough every day. Therefore, the ball in her belly was obviously more than 3 months old, but there was no sign of pregnancy at all. Jingchen Qishao. Mu Shuiyun sat on the bed, staring at Mother Wu and Ziyu, who were cleaning the room. Mu Shuiyun asked them both, Mother Wu, Ziyu, please stop being busy and come over here. I have something to ask you. When Mother Wu and Ziyu heard Mu Shuiyun's words, they immediately put down what they were doing, dusted off their clothes, and walked into the house. The two stood in front of Mu Shuiyun. Mother Wu was the elder and the nanny of Mu Shuiyun, and she truly treated the master Mu Shuiyun as a daughter. Therefore, Mother Wu boldly asked Mu Shuiyun, Second Miss, you call me Mother Wu. What's the matter with me and Ziyue? Mu Shuiyun saw that the two of them were standing a little far away from her and was afraid that they could not hear clearly what she asked. So she raised her hand and asked them to come closer. Mother Wu, Ziyue, stand over a little bit. Mother Wu said yes and took Ziyue one step closer to Mu Shuiyun. Mu Shuiyun looked at Mother Wu and Ziyue, looked at them in a soft voice and asked, Mother Wu, Ziyue, Shuiyun has something to ask you for help with, and please ask Mother Wu and Ziyue to agree to help Shuiyun. Miss, what are you talking about? As long as you want Mother Wu to do it, Mother Wu will definitely help you. As soon as Mother Wu heard Mu Shuiyun's kind words, she immediately raised her head and looked at Mu Shuiyun, showing her unique loyalty to Mu Shuiyun. Ziyue also spoke at this time. Miss, Ziyue has been with the lady since she was a child. The lady treats Ziyue like a biological sister. Ziyue, like Wu's mother, swears to repay the lady to the death. Mu Shuiyun didn't expect that she just asked them for a favor, but actually tested their loyalty to her. Mu Shuiyun quickly stood up from the bed, walked to the two of them, held one of their hands with each hand, and said touchily, Thank you. Originally, she was afraid of suddenly coming here, but now that she has the sworn allegiance of Wu's mother and Ziyue, Mu Shuiyun feels like she was about to die of thirst in the desert when two similar people suddenly appeared and gave her some water to drink, saving her from the edge of death. After being moved for a while, Mu Shuiyun did not forget the purpose of calling them over. She looked at them and asked, Mother Wu, Ziyue, you also know that I hit my head last night and can't remember many things. Can you tell me everything that happened to me before? No problem. Let me, Mother Wu, tell you about your past first. Miss, your name is Mu Shuiyun, and you are the second young lady of the Prime Minister's mansion. Your mother was the third aunt of the Prime Minister's mansion. She passed away not long after giving birth to you.